Hey, what's up guys? So today I'm going to be working on my car again. I'm going to be upgrading the radiator hoses. One thing about the Vipers is they're notorious for blowing radiator hoses. With the car being a 2000, the radiator hoses are 16 plus years old. So they're prone to cracking and then eventually they blow. With it being a V10, it creates a lot of heat, dries out those radiator hoses. So let me show you a few things of what we're going to do today. Before we get started too, if you guys want to know any info on this, it's a 2014 Jeep Rubicon. It's actually my roommates who I share this house with, so if you guys want any info on that, he'd be more than glad to go over it with you guys and show you all the work that he's done to it too. And this is just my daily driver, nothing too special, it's the Jetta TDI. Alright, so on this stuff, this is the stuff I got. So I have a Mishimoto radiator hoses. They're actually an American company, but they just have this, kind of Japanese name to compete with the other guys. So these are the hoses I picked up. It's just a top and a bottom radiator hose. Let's take a look at those. So yeah, these are silicone radiator hoses. Top one's actually smaller diameter than the bottom one, which you can see. I think the top one's about 2 inch and then the bottom one's about 2.5 almost. I also picked up some 5-year antifreeze from Mopar and then distilled water to mix it with. And then I also got 4 stainless steel band clamps too, because the ones that are on the car are known to leak if you just try to use them with the silicone hoses. So these are the hoses I'm going to be replacing. Here's the top one, routes from the thermostat over here, thermostat housing. These are the band clamps I was telling you I'm probably going to just remove because they don't seal well. You can actually see the hose is a little bit bloated too here, so. And it's actually, mine's dripping right from here, so it's a good time to change them. And I'll show you on the other side where the bottom one is. So, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, the bottom hose runs from right there to the bottom of the radiator down here. So, first things first, I already went ahead and jacked up the car. The car's on 4 jack stands. And I'm also going to remove this front wheel, just so I don't have to completely get underneath the car, because there is one clamp right here. So I'm going to remove this wheel. Another thing about the Viper too, it's a little bit strange, but for those of you that have one, you might already know, there's the reservoir here, and there's also a reservoir in the front fascia here, so you can see the indicator right there for your level. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and drain the coolant first. I'm gonna do that by pulling the radiator, the lower radiator hose, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, so I got the wheel off now. Another thing I want to talk about is I've actually used Mishimoto products before on my 607 wheel horsepower S2000 that I built before, so it's the reason why I went with this company. Next we're going to get into the fun. I got a bucket here, and I'm going to remove the lower hose off the radiator, so let's see some water work. Alright, John's about to climb a camera, or a couch. Hold on, go. Hold on, you gotta go back. I'll push it off. Now go. Push it off the curve that way, right? No, it is, yeah. Go. Oh. Hold on. Take 2. We gotta push the whole thing up. All right. Now she's got nowhere to go. There we go. Now we made a mess. We're just gonna leave her here? She good there?
No, it looks like shit.
I think you broke it. I think you broke it. Should we leave right here? Oh, perfect. She's good.
Sweet, that works.
Well, now everyone knows it's garbage, right?
That's right.
Perfect.
No, we'll run it over.
Oh, I also have a GSXR and it has a motor swap in it too. So if you guys want to know anything about that, I can make a video on this too. I'm kind of switching my focus to the car instead now, so a little more safe. I'll probably do some track days on this, and this has track tires on it, so I used to do a lot of series riding on this. So yeah, I'm getting away from this so I stay in one piece and keep, you know, playing with this one. Alright, next I'm going to take off the air box so I can get to some of these top clamps and get to the hoses from the top. So on the air box, simple, just take off these two intake tubes. There's another hose here, clamp here, and then just this one sensor. You just unplug it here. And then as far as the air box itself, you have this basically quick release knob, just unscrew it. And this one as well, and the third here. So take out those three, and this whole thing should come out. Remove this top radiator hose. This one's another pain in the ass to get off. You can see how bloated this hose is. It barely wants to climb over. Alright, so there's that. She's ready to come off. Hopefully this is empty by now, and it is. Alright, so that one's empty. Let's move on to the hose over here. Alright, let's remove this clamp. And this clamp's really close to this hood hinge here, so you can have to push this hood hinge out of the way just to slip it past. And we can work the hose off. So we got it spinning. Alright, she's off. Alright, so what I actually did was I put the upper radiator hose, I put it on here and turned it up in this direction here. So there is two drains on each side of each bank on the engine block, but you need a special tool, or you need to either take an extension from a ratchet set and grind it down from a 3/8 to a little bit smaller because it's a weird size. So I don't feel like doing that, and I'm not going to do that since the fluid wasn't too dirty coming out. So I'm just gonna run some clean water through it. I've actually already done most of that. And the other thing too is I already flushed out this tank, this reservoir tank. So there's two of them. There's one here, and then there's one below the front fascia, actually below the passenger side headlight. So you can see it right here through this sight glass. There's a clear bottle behind. So you can use a cheap vacuum pump to remove the fluid in there and flush that out. I actually have this one. It's a Mighty Vac fluid evacuator. So this isn't too expensive though if you decide you want one. You can actually change your oil with this on other vehicles too. On my Jetta I actually can change the oil without getting underneath it just by putting this through the dipstick tube and pumping the oil out and changing the filter from the top. But so it has more than one use. But so I'm gonna pump out the fluid, So I've already reached in here. There's this access hole once you take the wheel off, and you can reach your hand in there, pop the cap off this tank, and then suck the fluid out of there. So first I'm gonna suck the fluid out. And then if you look at this hose here, this top hose, this is the one that actually goes to that overflow tank. So I'm gonna remove it here. I'm gonna put fresh water in through this hose. It's gonna go into this tank. And I'll do that a couple times and basically just extract the dirty fluid. So I have this hose in there right now. So if you see, if I pump this, it's gonna start pulling all that old coolant out of there. So yeah, it's basically just draining coolant in there. So I'll do this and I'll flush this at the same time and show you guys how to do that. Alright, so I popped this hose just off here, off the side of the cap, and I also installed this funnel into here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour fresh water into here. It's gonna go into that tank and we'll suck it back out with this one. Alright, fill it up again. Alright, so this reservoir tank's all cleaned out, so I can go ahead and close this back up. So we'll slide our hand in here, put the cap on, get ready to click, reinstall the fog light access cover. And up here, remove this funnel to reinstall it. Alright, next I'm going to remove this lower radiator hose. Take the band clamp off. And this band clamp. Alright, so band clamp is onto the hose. Hopefully she comes off without too much fuss. Alright, that wasn't too bad. So the hose is free. Send it out the bottom here. And we can move this out of the way. And here is the hose coming out. Alright, so the hose is free. And we got two old hoses here. Alright, before I put on the new hoses, I just want to go over how brutal the old hoses were. And even though they weren't, broken, just how bad they were. So here's a lower radiator hose. You can see how swollen it is. So you can see why people are, having issues with the hose actually bursting, because this one's getting pretty stretched here. So you can see where the clamp was, how bloated it got here. And I put the clamp on here and you can see it's just, not in the best structural shape. So here's a replacement one. They're all silicone hoses. So the shape obviously looks pretty similar, so hopefully she fits good. Same thing here, here's the top one. You can see how bloated it is around the clamp too, so definitely a good time to replace them. Preventative maintenance, make sure, nothing happens. And same thing again, silicone one for the top. And you can see the shape is pretty well matched on both. So let's go ahead and put these new ones in and see how that goes. Alright, so here's the lower hose. Go ahead and get this in here. It actually slides over really nice, so good fitment so far. There's that clamp. tighten down this fan clamp. Don't want to go too crazy with how tight you put these, just because you can overstress it a little bit. So just with this handle here, it should be tight enough. You don't have to go crazy with a ratchet or anything. Alright, so that one's on nice. We'll go to the lower. Alright, so here's the lower hose. Slide this on. Okay, got quite a bit of it on there. And here's the band clamp, so we'll tighten this on. So the other thing too is whenever you put the band clamp on, you want to make sure it's past that ridge. You don't want it to be on the ridge because you might not get a good seal. Alright, so this one's secure. And onto the top hose. Alright, let's go ahead and put on this top hose. So I'll situate my clamps. So I'm going to keep track of how much I've actually put in the system. I have 1 gallon of the Mopar 5 here, and then I have 1 gallon of distilled water. So I'm going to first put in the antifreeze, and then I'll add the distilled water later. You're supposed to cut it 50-50, so for sure it's going to take one of these, and then we'll see if I add a full distilled water, then I'll have to go and get another jug of antifreeze as well and go from there. So let's put this in. Alright, so the coolant level is pretty well full in the reservoir. The tank that's below over here, I also have filled about halfway, so I'm going to go ahead and start the car and see where the fluid ends up. Check for leaks too, so good, not leaking. Get this few pumps. Check over here. There. much done. You just gotta heat cycle it a few times. So like I said, in order to do that, make sure that your heater valve is on, or you turn the heat on all the way in the car. I just popped this off just for simplicity to make sure it was all the way open. And then you just sit here and take a look at your coolant reservoir tank up here. So what's gonna happen is after you heat cycle a few times, let the fan cycle on and off a bunch of times, you'll let it fully cool. And what's gonna happen is this reservoir tank is gonna suck out, it's gonna basically, when the air pocket gets filled in here, it's gonna take the coolant level down in this chamber. And when it does that, it's gonna create a vacuum and pull coolant from this tank down below. So once it gets fully cool, you'll see that this tank will drop, the level will drop lower. Then you fill this right back up to the neck. And basically what's gonna happen is it's gonna heat up, expand, it'll push the extra fluid from this hose into that tank down below. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna balance out. So you'll just keep an eye on this level here to make sure you're in the middle. Do that a couple times, and once you see this start dropping, all the way to the bottom, and your temperature gauge inside is still looking okay, then you're pretty much done. So if you like this video, guys, please subscribe. I'm gonna be doing more of these and others as well. Okay, so I'm also gonna be doing another video, a review video of these BC Racing coilovers. So you can see here what I was saying in my intro video is they have adjustable bodies. So what that means is you can adjust the ride height based on the bottom here. So this locking collar actually locks in this body, which you can raise or lower on the actual shock itself. So this is where your height adjustment takes place, is here. You spin this bottom, or you spin the shock into this bottom, and then you lock it in place to secure it. And then this is your spring preload. So you can set the actual spring preload with these two locking collars here. And then also you have your standard compression dampening as well. So here's the adjustment for that. And yeah, these are just a nicer unit. I went a little bit stiffer than most applications. So these are 12K in the front and 14K in the rear. It's very similar to the ACR spring rates, but it is definitely a pretty aggressive ride. So
what we do here is go back.